In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this drill press stand that is on casters so that it's mobile, has drawers with some simple storage organizing built-ins, and has two adjustable side supports that can be raised to be level with the deck of the drill press. Let's get into how I built it. This build took one sheet of 3/4 inch plywood, which made up the entire body and the shelves. Then one sheet of 1/2 inch plywood, which I used for the back and all of the drawers. I started off by cutting down my sheets over at my workbench with my track saw, then took them to my table saw when they were a more manageable size. If you'd like to build the same, I do have a full set of plans with a cut list, material list, and step-by-step instructions. There's a link for you down below. Once I had all my body pieces cut, I grabbed what will be my two side pieces and started marking off where the shelves would be placed. After marking them on one, I butted the second board up to it and transferred the markings. Next, I set up my armor tool pocket hole jig and started drilling pocket holes in these shelves. And I'm still not over how cool it is that this jig is self-adjusting. After getting all of the pocket holes drilled on both sides on all four shelves, I started attaching them. I started at the top and worked my way down to the bottom just because I placed the location of these pocket holes on the bottom side of the shelves, and this makes it easier to get a drill in there. However, I also spaced these drawers out so that a drill could fit in between each shelf, so I wouldn't find myself stuck on how to attach the other pocket holes once I flipped it over. When I was done with one side and ready to flip it over, I set the other side piece into place and laid down my beads of glue before actually flipping. On this entire build, I'm using Titebond Original since it's going to be inside my shop. And now you can see that I work my drill in between each shelf in order to secure the side of things, making sure I was keeping these shelves lined up to my pencil mark, keeping them nice and square. Those are in, so next I grabbed the bottom piece and started attaching it. To make this easier, I flipped the unit on its side and started at the corners. To make sure I don't end up splitting the edge of the plywood, I'm using a pre-drill on all of these holes. Also, after I secured one side, I used a clamp to help pull in the ply and get things nice and flush. Before moving to the top, I attached 4 casters to the bottom. Even though the stand doesn't move hardly ever, it's still very nice to have it on casters for the few times that it does. And I went with 4 swiveling casters. Next, I turned it around and repeated the same steps for attaching the top. On my old stand, I only had a single sheet of ply as my top, and it was really too thin to bolt down the drill press to. So on this stand, I decided to double up on this thickness of the top to give myself more meat for the bolts. I slid the unit to the floor, applied glue, then used a few brad nails to attach the second top. And that is the body done. Real quick, I want to say a big thank you to this video sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform that I've personally been using to learn a 3D modeling software called Fusion 360. Being able to put together a model of a project before actually going to the shop not only saves time because the project is already designed, but it also saves money because I know exactly how much material to get and how best to cut it to get the most yield. This class is just one example of what's available though. Skillshare has over 25,000 classes on a very impressive spread of subjects, so regardless if you're wanting to learn 3D modeling, photography, or even general business skills such as accounting and how to freelance, Skillshare has plenty to choose from. For less than $10 a month, you can get an annual subscription to Skillshare and get an unlimited access to the entire library of educational videos. If you want your first 2 months of Skillshare for free, then click the link down in the description and use my code at checkout. I want to thank you so much for supporting what I do. Moving on to making the drawers. As I said in the beginning, these are made from a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood, and after breaking it down using my track saw, I used my miter and table saw to get everything to their final needed dimensions. Before assembling though, I grabbed what will be the 4 drawer faces and taped them together. This is so I can cut in the handles at the same time. If you do this, of course, just make sure that the edges are nice and flush so that they all turn out to be the same. Next, I used my Woodpeckers T Square to mark off the handle shape, then used my bandsaw to cut it out. Note that this is an easy way of doing a handle, but it does create an opening for some dust to get into the drawer. This is not an issue for me, but note that another option is to skip this step and attach a drawer pull to the outside. Now to start assembling, I went with simple butt joint drawer construction for these drawers. I've made all of my shop drawers this way, and regardless of what I put in them, they haven't failed yet. I use my super jaws to help hold pieces in place while I apply glue and brad nails. I start by attaching both of the side pieces, then flip things around to attach the front and the back. And that's it. I always make sure to either let the glue squeeze out dry or wipe it off before sliding the drawers into the body. It would not be funny to accidentally glue the drawers to the shelves. Moving on to the wings or side supports, it will be extremely handy to have adjustable supports that can go up and down to be level with the deck of the drill press. I started off by measuring and marking where to punch a through hole, making sure to move the drawer out of the way so that it would be in the clear. This hole is so that I can place a bolt through the inside and stick out to fit into a slot cut into the wing. And I have to apologize because my camera battery died as I was making this cut and I didn't realize it. But I used a fence on my plunge router to make this slot. If you don't have a router, then another option would be to drill a hole and use a jigsaw. But you can see that the wing slot fits right over this bolt, so now I can add a washer and a nut, then slide it up and down. Of course, tightening down on the nut when it's at the height that I need. While this works great, it does have an issue staying square. So to fix that issue, I cut a few additional pieces to secure to either side and kind of block it in. I used a square to first make sure that the wing is square, then glued and used brad nails to attach these side pieces. And there we go. That works just as it should. While I'm sure the 3/4 inch thickness would have been fine, I still went ahead and attached another piece of plywood to the top side of this wing's edge to widen it out a little bit. Then I also attached a support piece underneath it. Now when I have something long at the drill press, I can raise the wings up to the height needed to support it, but then whenever I'm done, I can lower them back down. And these top flanges I added also double as a convenient handle. Now I was using hardware that I had on hand, which is why the bolts are super long. To cut them down, I used this awesome new electric cutoff wheel by Milwaukee. I left just enough room for the washer and also a larger knob. This knob will be way easier to grab and turn than a regular nut. But another option would be to use a wing nut. You could actually stop there. However, before calling it quits, I went ahead and added a few drawer organizers just to add a little bit more function to these drawers. I first cut down some masonite I had, and the only reason I chose this material is because it was the thinnest stuff I had in my shop at the time. Next, I cut 2 strips of 1/2 inch ply and glued and nailed them into the inside of these drawers. You can see this creates a shelf that I can rest the masonite onto. To stiffen up the board, I ripped a few more pieces of 1/2 inch ply and trimmed around the perimeter, then filled in between with the same cutoffs. This creates some small pockets that you can store anything, but I plan to place spare drill bits that don't have a place in an index. You know, after owning an index for a while, bits get broken or lost and I purchased a new one. This will give me a place to store the bits left over, but allow me to toss that bulky box. By creating the sliding tray, I can place my full indexes on the bottom of the drawer and just move this tray back and forth to get to the front or back of it. After making the first one, I loved it so much I made one for all of my brad nails, which for some reason I keep in my drill press stand. One cubby actually fits one full box of nails perfectly, so for my most popular sizes, like 1 1/4 and 3/4, I dedicated 2 cubbies to them, writing in pencil at the top of each one to label the size. And there we are, a pretty darn functional drill press stand. Now keep in mind that while the drawer trays and the adjustable side supports are great for a drill press, you can also implement these ideas in a variety of other ways in the shop. Don't forget that if you want to make your own, I do have a set of plans linked for you down below, and I'll see you on whatever it is I'm building next.